you can't force the same pattern of how you record on everyone, because you won't get great results that way. Even if, there's no producer per se on the record and they're just coming to you to record, it's up to you, the guy recording, to hear the stuff that they may not hear, to hear the stuff that they could improve, to hear the stuff that may be better if they tried it this way or that way. It's really up to you to be listening and figure out what it is that the song may be missing. I'll give you a great example. Michael Beinhorn talks about Chris Cornell, and I mention him a lot because one of the best voices in rock and roll ever, right? So we have to talk about it. He realized very early on that Chris Cornell didn't perform well when other people were staring at him, watching him. So when he'd be in the vocal booth, the way you would typically record, producer sitting behind the desk and engineer at the desk, right? Producer sitting there watching. Chris Cornell felt like a monkey. Or according to Michael Beinhorn, there was the thought that he wasn't able to be himself because he had to perform. And this could have been all unsaid. All that was happening was that Michael Beinhorn knew it wasn't sounding great. That's all he knew. He knew that the person in front of him can do better. That's what he knew. Based on the skill set that he brought to the table, it just wasn't happening. That's what he knew. So he's thinking to himself, why do the demos sound different than this? Well, he was alone recording the demos himself. That's a big thing. Is somebody super self-conscious about you staring at them through the glass? Are they the type of person who's not going to be able to perform in that way? If so, he did what was amazing, and I learned a lot from this kind of an idea. What he basically did was say, listen, Chris, you run the desk. You do what you're going to do. I'll be out in the lounge. Come get me when you're done doing your vocal takes. I'll comp, and then he would come in, Michael Beinhorn, and comp the vocal so that it was the best version of everything Chris just did. In other words, don't leave the singer on their own to put it all together and decide what the best is, but let the person perform without everybody staring at him, potentially. Jimi Hendrix used to do a similar thing where he didn't want anybody looking at him. He didn't want mirrors in the room so he could see himself. They used to cover the mirrors. They used to make it where no one could see him recording his vocal because he didn't like the way his voice sounded. So these are very helpful tips where singers aren't always the most confident people. You have to figure out ways to make it work. And if there's a bunch of people in the control room, a whole band, on the other side of the glass, you know what that feels like? What it feels like, if you've ever been in a studio recording, what it feels like is the singer's all alone on an island singing. And then across the glass, there's a whole band in there, and you're watching their faces smile, you're watching them turn and talk to each other. As a self-conscious person, what that means is you think every time they're smiling and laughing, it's about you. You think every time they're doing anything, they're making fun of you. That's what happens in a singer's mind. A lot of singers are self-conscious. You're not the only one if you think that way. So don't feel like you're the only one. The point may be get everybody out of the freaking room. That way they're not looking at anybody smiling and laughing. Because every time that talkback mic gets pushed, the volume in the control room gets amplified. And you hear you hear laughs, you hear the ends of jokes, you'll hear all sorts of things where if you're an insecure person, that can bleed into your psyche and make your performance terrible. Because now you're thinking about all that instead of focused on what you're doing. And this is something I mentioned in another video, distracting people in any way with jokes or any of this sort of thing is like the worst thing you can do. But you can't control what a band is going to do amongst themselves. You can't control that. What you can control is your people. That's why an intern who's talking out of turn and making comments is like, get this guy out of here. Even if he's the funniest guy ever. Even if it's Rodney Dangerfield in there making jokes. Doesn't make a difference. Get him out of the room. Because that distraction is not good. Distraction is never good. It's like picture flying a plane with somebody distracting you. It's like, leave me alone, man. And it's the same concept. You literally have to make the singer at ease. Figure out what that means. That could mean get everybody out. It could mean let them record themselves in their own studio at home and send you the tracks. Like there's so many ways you could approach this. If you want to give them the ability to run the session themselves, put a mic in front of them and let them run it themselves. This goes to another point. If they're a type of guy who sings live holding a microphone, There's another technique people use where they give the guy a 57 and then they put up a couple room mics, you know, a U47 a little further away, to capture what's happening the way you would want it using the gear you want, but give them a 57 to record into also, so that they have both. Because you may wind up using the close mic on the 57, but you may wind up using, you know, the U47 that's a foot back, to, you know, a foot and a half back. The point is, you got to figure out what works. And that this is also why sometimes people will play the guitar while they're singing. They'll like take their guitar electric and unplug it so that they can still do the strum pattern, because sometimes if people are really used to that, then they can't do it the same without it. They're used to the downbeat with their hand and making this whole thing happen with a guitar in their hands. They may perform totally different without it. It's up to you to hear it, recognize it, and adjust as needed. That's what your job is, in addition to getting the best quality sonics you can from all the gear. All right? It's not just, you have much more than just one job, much more. You guys got this. All right? If you found this useful, hit the like and subscribe button. I'd love to hear your opinions on this too. Any other tricks you guys have used to solve situations like this, leave it in the comments, and I'll throw up a link to that other video about what not to do if you're assisting or interning in a studio, because that's also a pretty critical video. So see you guys later. Talk to you soon. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios.